Alex read my bio. I was in the United States Marine Corps, active in reserve for almost 14 years. I do work in the professional communications field. Um, my company and myself were advisors to many law enforcement agencies, fire agencies, as well as state and federal agencies. Not only for their vehicle and base communications, we build a lot of field deployables, which are basically go kits with professional communications equipment. And that could be anything from radios to satellite equipment to internet and so forth. We do have some federal contracts. We build stuff for the Federal USAR Task Force. We're working on some projects with New York Fire to do some communications stuff in the subways in case of a disaster. I also advise a lot of hospitals outside my volunteerism with the hospitals. We have 21 base hospitals in the city and county of Los Angeles. Currently, I have 19, or by the end of the year, I'll have 19 under contract for their base paramedic system. And I got a few school districts that I work with. And back in 2018, I started with a company called Global Security Systems, developing an earthquake early warning FM receiver. I talked about it at the ARES meetings. I brought some at the last ARES meeting, and we'll have those available for people who want to get earthquake early warning notifications. And this works with through the FM radio waves or bands and not as an app. So everybody gets it at the same time, as long as you have a good FM radio signal from the stations that we use. On the volunteer side, I do a lot, but the main stuff, District Emergency Coordinator for ARES Los Angeles section for the Northwest District. We also started a 501c3 called EmComm group, and I appointed myself as communications officer. And the purpose of that was to raise money and awareness for all the EmComm groups, whether it's ARES or ACS or DCS or some of the other ones, somewhere where they can go ahead and have the money come into our group and 100% gets redistributed out to them. There's other ways of them earning money, including some of the HAM classes we hold and so forth. They get all the class fees. Also Baker to Vegas, I'm the comm unit leader for the entire and the planner for communications for Baker to Vegas, and Alex said a bunch of other things. So amateurs, so the slide I give at all my presentations for people that want to know the definition as a person who engages in the art, science, study, or athletic activity as a pastime rather than a profession. And the only difference between us and a professional is a professional gets paid, but we do the exact same thing. And one thing we don't want to do is become amateurish. Someone who is amateurish is unskilled, incompetent, inept, or unskilled. Just because we're amateurs does not make us amateurish. We want to always portray a professional appearance and act as a professional. And you're going to see me, or you're going to hear me talk about this over and over again. And some things I kind of mentioned 3 or 4 times. It's not that I've unintentionally done that or haven't read my slides. It's because it's very, very important. All right. For those of you that don't know anything about ARES or Amateur Radio Emergency Service, we are sponsored by the ARRL since 1935. The ARRL sponsors the different sections throughout the United States. We are in California, so we have 9 sections, and I'm part of the Los Angeles section known as LAX. We have section emergency coordinators. This is our leadership chart. District emergency coordinators, emergency coordinators, and AEC. Just basically our leadership level and chain of command. We are not a radio club. We're a group of trained amateur radio operator volunteers organized to assist public service and emergency communications. On a national level, we have a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU, with a variety of agencies, including FEMA, American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and the National Weather Service. Locally, we have MOUs, whether they're written or verbal, with the county, with certain hospitals, repeat owners, and other agencies locally. We have 4 districts within ARES LAX. Some of our partner agencies, locally and nationally, Los Angeles County Medical Alert Center, we call it the MAC. Since ARES supports the hospitals, that's who we report to. Many of our members are also Skywarn members. So we do have a relationship with the National Weather Service. Locally, we have a relationship with the California Highway Patrol. In the San Fernando Valley, we have a very good relationship with the LAPD as well as the California National Guard. Having said that, COVID has kind of put a delay in some of our relationship or activity with these organizations, but we're starting to get back doing some training with these groups. We also have several emergency operations centers within the city and county that we support. And many of our members also support the Veterans Administration and the various districts. We have a total of 72 hospitals that we back up with disaster communications. Some of the community events we do are Baker to Vegas, the AC 100, Field Day, fairs, and other public events. And some of our other agency partners are the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and FEMA. Now, ARES isn't the only EmComm organization in the county. ACS is a very big one. They are supported and sponsored by the Los Angeles Fire Department, and they are the official RACES organization of the city of Los Angeles. And we have DCS, Disaster Communication Service. They are sponsored by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and they support the Sheriff's Department and the County of Los Angeles. We each have our own missions. They are very different, so there's no turf battle there. Many of our members have dual or triple membership. What is emergency communications? It's also known as EmComm, EComm, OxComm. It's the practice of providing communication services during emergency response, especially in situations where traditional communication modes may be overloaded or not available. We're not there to replace any communications. We're there to supplement and back up. We're not there to take over. In order to do that, we follow the ICS or NIMS protocols, which is the Incident Command System and the National Incident Management System. I'm not sure how many people online today have trained or have taken any of the ICS classes. Most of them are online. They're very easy. It really gives you a good concept of how things go in an emergency, especially at a unified command. All response organizations and assets are organized into 5 functional areas. You have your command group, your operations, planning, logistics, and admin finance sections. The next slide I'm going to show you highlights that. And those are the 5 sections. Before I go to the next slide, anybody know where communications falls? We fall under logistics, under the comm unit. You would figure we'd be under operations, but we're not. We're under the logistics section. So if you take some of the ICS courses, and I think it's very important that many of you do, because even in a disaster, if you're not going to volunteer, understanding how things work gives you a better understanding of the incident and how response is handled. We could actually be assigned to any of the sections. It's very possible that we'll even be under finance and administration if they need comm support. So anything is possible, and again, depends on the level of activation and the size of the response. So, but again, ICS is going to could be a whole other training class that could take hours and hours. But if you're interested, all you have to do is Google FEMA ICS training. You create a logon and you take the basic courses, and we'll talk about those a little bit later on. The most important thing to understand is that EmComm members, we're not first responders. We're ready responders. We're ready to respond when we're asked by an organization, group, or partner agency. We never respond by ourselves. It's dangerous and irresponsible. If you respond by yourself, no one knows where you're at. It's very important that your command or your net control or your leadership knows where you are at all times. The other thing is, don't try to be a hero. Our job is communications, not climbing ladders and getting people out of buildings or jumping into a building where there's a fire or if there's an earthquake. That there are people that are trained for that. If we're not on the radio, we're not helping, because communications is the number one thing that becomes overwhelmed or not available in a disaster. You have to keep a proper attitude when working with these organizations, agencies, and so forth. We need to be a shining example of what amateur radio is about. Our conduct should be professional, courteous, considerate, effective, and we should rise above the situation. We need to watch our ego and not bruise someone else's. At the same time, we shouldn't take anything personally if someone says something that we find offensive. We're all under a lot of stress. Things are happening, so we need to respect authority, take orders, and manage your stress. And if something happens, you get upset, just walk away. Don't blow up. Don't have a reaction. Just say, you know what, I need a timeout. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. It happens to the best of us. If things aren't going well at the moment, it's not a failure, it's delayed success. Remember that things are not supposed to go right in a real emergency. Focus on a task, pull it off to the best of your ability. You know, we used to have somebody in part of our leadership who's no longer there. He's been gone for a while. Guy was a bad leader. He's 180 degrees. He was 180 degrees, the opposite of what I'm talking about. He used to throw us on a bus, tell us, you know, how we screwed up, tell our partner agencies how we screwed up, and that's not how you do it. You tell them, hey, this is what we learned from it. This is where we're going to improve. But you don't throw your people under the bus, because we're all volunteers. We don't need someone to make us less valuable than we are. You always want to look your best, and I'm going to talk about appearance a lot as we go along. But your appearance reflects on amateur radio and how you're perceived. Maintain a clean and professional appearance at all times. You don't need uniforms, but uniformity is key. Don't dress up like you just woke up. Don't dress like you're going to a picnic, and don't dress like you're a SWAT member. I know some members, and this is not necessarily an Aries thing or an ACS or DCS or CERT thing, but they have more tactical gear on and they've been shopping on eBay and Amazon than the first responders do. That's not what we're all about. We're there to fit in. You know, we're not tactical people. And you do want to look like you're prepared, and you do want to dress for the event. Shorts, flip-flops don't belong. That's just reality, but I've seen it happen. A good active ham volunteer is well-trained, knowledgeable, active. He's disciplined and well-prepared. He works as an organized team. He follows policies and instructions. He's competent and resourceful. An inactive, unprepared ham is a liability. Wannabes and freelancers equal big headaches. If you're not trained, and we'll talk about training a little bit later on, you don't show up to meetings and exercises, you don't know what it's going to be like in a real disaster. So it's going to be very difficult. Doing it right saves our communication mission, and it protects our organization from liability. An EmComm organization should have a clear mission and goal. Members should show up prepared. Know what the purpose of the day's mission is. This could be whether it's a disaster or a drill, an exercise, a community fair, it really doesn't matter. Everybody should know what's going on. And it's the part of the leadership to inform the members. Showing up prepared means frequencies are programmed. You're dressed appropriately. I can't tell you how many times in the past years, especially when I started, a dozen years ago, I'd have members showed up with their HT or whatever radio. What frequency are we on? We're on Aries 503. Well, what is 503? Well, it's on your frequency list. Well, I don't have that. Well, your radio should be programmed at all times. You don't wait till the disaster to program your radio. You should know how to program your radio, but you shouldn't wait till the last minute to program all your radio. Make sure you have all your documentation, forms, pens, and pencils. We're going to talk more about that. Make sure you have a clear understanding of net procedures. Make sure you know who your command staff is or who the unified command staff is. It's very, very important. As part of an EmComm organization, we strive to keep training fun and informative. We try to make it as real as possible and make it hands-on. COVID really put a damper on some of our training and made it very difficult to do a lot of the stuff. Not all of our members have returned. Some are still isolated, and I respect that and I understand that. We also have different people to present their expertise from our organizations or other organizations. And we also want different people to plan and run the drills, nets, etc. I can run all the nets and drills I want, but in a disaster, I may not be available or I may be tasked with something else. So somebody has to take over. In order to ensure our members can perform in a professional and safe manner and show dedication to the team's mission, all members should be required to have the following training. Obviously, an amateur radio license. The basic ICS courses, 1, 2, 7, and 8 for all our membership. No matter what organization you volunteer for, those are just basic core classes that they all recommend. Whether you're working with animals as a volunteer, you're working for the Red Cross, ACS, DCS, Aries, Salvation Army, it really doesn't matter. You should have a good understanding of ICS, and 1, 2, 7, and 8 really help that. For command staff, the 101A, 240, 242, and 244 are some additional leadership type stuff. The ARRL has an EmComm course level 1. We have asked our command staff or our leadership to take that, and many of our members. Having CERT level 1 training is good. If you don't have it, obviously we can't force anybody, but many of our members have level 2 and 3. We started doing some first aid, CPR, and AED training before COVID, but unfortunately that was derailed, but we're going to start that again. And we want you to participate in 2 active on-the-ground drills every year. One of the things we started doing many years ago, we brought all the emergency communication ham groups together. We all were working out there on our own. As I said, many of our members were members of multiple organizations, but we all had a different mission. We all had different net procedures and policies, procedures, supported agencies. We needed to work together, and for many years that wasn't possible. But we did our first interoperable mission with the ACS group at Operation Gratitude. I think it was a million package event, and it worked out well. So we all worked together to start developing that. Again, COVID slowed that down, but we're starting to do interoperable exercises and drills. We really need to learn how each other operates. It's very important. Each group will stay autonomous. We all have our own missions, but we want to start developing common training, drills, exercises, maybe eventually do quarterly or monthly interoperability nets, find out what interoperable or back frequencies we can share, have a group liaison to the sister agency, and have an advisory group with agency partners and EmComm groups. So some of the stuff is in place, some of it we're still developing. We also want to communicate any way possible. We all remember the term, when all else fails, there's ham radio. That's absolutely true. We have the amateur bands, but we have 15 million people in the city and county of Los Angeles. I'm not sure how many licensed active hams we have, but they're all going to get on the radio. We want to take advantage of those, but frequencies don't stop at county borders. We have Orange County and Ventura County and Riverside, San Bernardino, and Kern County that might be affecting us. But you all should learn how to use agency equipment, whether they have an analog system or conventional system or a P25 system, because it might be very important for you to use their equipment. ACS and DCS have the opportunity to do that a little bit more than Aries does, but very important that you learn to use agency equipment. Commercial bands, one of the things I did a few years ago was get licensed and pick up a couple of commercial frequencies. Sometimes we're working with non-hams or hospitals and we need to hand them some radios. We can do that by using some commercial frequencies. But additionally, cell phones, satellite, internet, mesh, runner, smoke signals. You need to get the message out any way you can in an emergency or disaster. Attire, we talked about that earlier. Wear attire that will properly identify you. A polo or button-up shirt with a logo, whether it says amateur radio or Aries, or, you have the fire department's ACS authorized shirt or the DCS uniform. It identifies who we are and what we're doing. Showing up in a t-shirt or something that looks like, you're just somebody else doesn't identify who you are. And we're trying to get better at that within Aries. A cargo or tactical pants, something to wear. You have multiple pockets. They're very durable. They're comfortable. Better than jeans. They breathe better. Closed toe shoes or boots. We do require that. I think all the groups do. I've seen people show up in flip-flops. I'm working with another group outside the area. It's a volunteer fire group. We had a training a couple months ago, and this guy's wearing his turnout gear, and he showed up in sandals. Well, that's not the best thing to fight a wildland fire. So you know what? That alone, when somebody shows up like that, it shows to the first responders that these volunteers may not be serious. Put on the boots, put on the socks. The safety equipment is very important. A hat to protect you from the sun, a hard hat for safety when required, a safety vest when required, gloves, safety glasses, goggles. And again, don't dress like a SWAT member. Tactical pants and a shirt are fine. But all the stuff some volunteers wear out there is just, when I meet with the first responders for my job, we kind of laugh at that. So-and-so showed up and, he had more gear than we have. The only thing they're missing is the body armor and the firearm. Very important to develop agency relationships, not only with your mate agency, whether your areas with our hospitals and the MAC, but other agencies. It's incredibly important that you do that. They need to know who you are and what you do. One of our previous leaders we had many, many years ago, who's no longer with us, had a problem with me developing relationship with law enforcement. He goes, we don't need to do that. We don't support them. I go, what are you talking about? I said, when we have to go to a location in a disaster and they have a roadblock, if they don't know who we are, they're not going to let us pass. I'm a ham radio operator. What the hell does that have to do with anything? Well, I'm a trained emergency communications ham, and we work, oh, yeah, you guys helped us with this thing, or you guys did this event. I know who you guys are. Go ahead. That's why it's important to develop the relationship. And at the same time, we may need their assistance, etc. They also may resupply you with food or water, housing, etc. during a disaster. So it's very, very important that you develop those relationships. Having said that, those relationships are earned. You can't demand it. Just because you're Aries or ACS or DCS or whatever, you can't go say, hey, I am so-and-so. They don't care. They want to see what you can do. And they want to make sure they can trust you. So your actions will speak better than your words or your promises. And one thing I learned in the service, and anybody that was in the service probably remembers this, you command respect, you don't demand respect. The other thing is, don't try to run the show. You're there to assist and be part of the team. You're also going to realize that some professionals don't like working with volunteers. Just deal with it. Not a big deal. We try to find a promoter in our served agency or partner agency. They're the best person you can get. I have promoters in all the agencies I deal with, law enforcement, some fire agencies, state agencies, and they're just so happy to work with us. Also get an MOU with your agency and have that with you. So when you're trying to get to a roadblock or you're showing up to Unified Command, you have some documentation that says you belong. I go to lunch with them. I try to build a personal relationship. It's very important when they feel that you're one of them. It's incredible. And sometimes I just bring the donuts to one of their meetings, and that buys a lot of credibility, believe it or not. You also want to get invited to participate in drills and exercises. When I started about a dozen years ago, it was very hard to get anybody to recognize you or get us to participate in anything. So I started inviting myself. I'm not saying that every member should do that, but leadership should do that. Attend their meetings, their briefings, their tabletop exercises. Ask if you can contribute to the planning, and we're not going to try to run it, but we're going to try to contribute. Ask to be an observer and evaluator. I can't tell you how many times I've asked to be an observer and evaluator. You know what? I get the best benefit out of it. I learn from it, and it's just an incredible learning experience. I can't go to them all because I have a daytime job, but I have gone as far as Oregon for their statewide exercise, been invited up there, and it's an incredible learning experience for me, and they learn how we do things. And it's very important to stay in touch with your served or partner agencies, even when things are quiet. Even during COVID, I made sure everybody knew we're still around. And you also want to send agencies information about your organization, including newsletters and announcements. Invite them to meetings and drills when possible. Get them licensed. Have them speak at your meetings. Give them awards and certificates. Make sure they have your organizational chart and contact info. One of the things I've done with a lot of agencies out there is I've given them our organization chart. I usually give it to the PIO, get his name and contact so he knows who we are. So in case we have an issue, we can contact them and they understand who we are. Our elected officials, it's very important to get to know them. They can be your best allies. They can help you get grants for your organization or group. It's very difficult, but they can. They can officially recognize your organization or group. As far as areas, we've had both the city and county have proclamations and so forth in front of the whole council, officially recognizing us. Get them trained. As a ham radio operator, they may never get on the radio, but now they're part of the ham radio world. And make them a member, give them an ID card. It doesn't mean anything. That's what we did with a couple of elected officials. They carry in their wallet. They can brag about it, but makes them part of the team. Try to attend as many community events, fairs, neighborhood council meetings, agency open houses, hospital events as you can. Host public safety fairs. We're hoping to get back into this after COVID. We all are. We already said about know your elected officials. Getting media involved, TV, radio, print, especially local publications. We've been marginally successful in getting some print publications locally. Media is very difficult in a big city, but we try. They're more in tune with, Britney Spears shaving their head than, volunteers doing a good job out there. I go to a lot of chamber meetings and events. At certain events, we've done go-to stations where we let people get on the air, and we picked up some youth doing that. And hold ham radio classes and get them trained. I know you guys do regular licensing, but hold some classes, help them understand, and then keep them interested in your group or organization. So now to the nitty gritty, deployment. What do I need to do to get to deploy? The first thing is make sure your personal affairs are taken care of. If a disaster happens, an earthquake happens, whatever it is, you want to make sure your family and property are safe. You just don't want to run out and deploy. You want to make sure everything is okay at your house, because if you're back worrying about it, is the gas leaking? Is there a water leak? My wife okay? The kids okay? Grandkids, whatever it is, you're not going to be of any use. You also want to let your family know where you're going to be deployed. Hey, I'm going to Northridge Hospital. I'm going to West Hills Hospital. I'm going to Fire Station 88. Wherever it is, you want to make sure they know where you are. They also should be able to reach you somehow. And we're working on getting some phone numbers that should work in an emergency that we can distribute to all the EmComm groups, and we'll have a way of getting in touch with deployed members. And let them know how long you may be deployed. Hey, I'm only going to be gone 8 hours. I don't know. Might be a couple of days. But you don't want them worrying about you. You should have a deployment bag. You should load that in your car. That should include food, water, meds, clothes, sleeping bag, etc., your phone and charger. So load that up in your car while you're getting ready to get deployed. And then you got to load up your communications equipment. And people ask, well, what communications equipment do I need? Well, you need amateur radio, a dual band analog handheld with charger, extra batteries, and if you have AA battery pack with extra batteries are very important. No matter where you go, you should always have a handheld with you. If required, a dual band, either a mobile base radio, a Go kit. You want to make sure you have extra additional power with that, the power cords, coax, antenna. Very important that you keep all this together and not try to have your base unit, hey, this is what I'm going to use in a disaster, because now you're trying to deploy and you're pulling out your home unit, and now you're trying to find coax, you're trying to find an antenna that you can use. Try to have a second set when possible. And many of us have mobile Go kits that we've built, one or more. So very important to have it. Obviously, there's some benefits of having a mobile with the power output and a better antenna. And all your forms and documentations. In our case, the ARIES form and our agency forms. We have hospital forms, our assessment form, our MCI, our resource request. Make sure you have something to write with, a pad of paper, pens and pencils, not just one pen or one pencil, because inevitably the pen's going to stop working and you can't show up with one piece of paper. So get yourself a spiral notebook or a steno pad or something, all your support documents. And very, very important, have your radio programming manuals, whether they're printed out, you have them on your laptop, your smart device, etc. Make sure you have them in a couple of places, because inevitably you're going to forget how to program something. One of the things we did in ARIES is we built emergency communications trailer, and several of the members that are listening and participating tonight contributed to the building of this. We collected some money, a lot of it out of my own pocket, and Chris, WA6VHA, we bought this trailer and we outfitted it. It's still a work in progress. We've added a lot of things in some of these pictures. We've used it for events and so forth. There's what it looks like with some of the communications equipment. We have HF equipment in there. We have VHF and UHF from 2 meters, 220 up to 1.2 gigahertz. We also have down on this end where the pointer is, we have our interoperable station. We have commercial gear, police, fire, and federal frequencies that are programmed into these radios that we can use. We have a printer copier over here. We have some basic handhelds here. These two yellow cases here have additional 36 handhelds. They're UHF that we can deploy both on ham and commercial frequencies. There's one of our members, David W0DHE, at one of our exercises. And that's during one of their field days with Diana Feinberg, our section manager, and an HF station that we set up inside the trailer. And the other thing is, consider joining an EmComm group. Aries Los Angeles section is a great group. Los Angeles Fire Department Auxiliary Communication Service, another great group. They primarily work with the fire department. They are the official RACES organization, as mentioned before, for the city of Los Angeles. They do some fantastic training and so forth. And if you're in the county areas, you may want to support the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Disaster Communication Service. The most important thing is, if you're going to join more than one organization, just let the organization know where you're going to deploy in a disaster. It's good to have the training from all these different organizations, but we really need to know where you're going to show up in an emergency or disaster type situation. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm open to questions, comments, concerns, disagreements, anything.